The desperate engineer. Zyra Tlaxon stared through the viewport of her approaching shuttle, her four eyes blinking in rapid succession as she took in the sprawling expanse of Orbital Station Prima. The massive structure hung above Earth like a metallic spider's web, its dozen primary docking arms extending outward to cradle vessels of all sizes and origins. Humanity's premier shipyard was both impressive and terrifying. Much like the species that built it, her tentacle-like sensory filaments writhed beneath her environment suit's collar, betraying her anxiety to anyone familiar with Centaurian physiology. 6 standard cycles ago, she would never have imagined herself seeking employment with humans. But desperation had a way of reshaping one's principles, and the collapse of the Centaurian Science Academy's funding had left many of its most promising engineers scrambling for work. Final approach to Docking Bay 17, announced the shuttle's eye. Please secure all personal effects and prepare for artificial gravity transition. Zyra pulled her gaze away from the window, checking the seals on her suit one final time. The humans maintained an atmosphere mix compatible with most carbon-based life forms, but she wasn't taking any chances. Her people's propaganda about human recklessness and their supposedly primitive safety protocols still echoed in her mind. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth, smoother than any she'd experienced on Centauri Prime. As she stepped through the airlock, a cheerful hologram materialized beside her. Welcome to Orbital Station Prima. I'm ARIA, your automated registration and integration assistant. Please proceed to immigration processing. Section C. The station's main concourse bustled with activity. Humans in station uniforms moved purposefully among beings from a dozen different worlds. What caught Zyra's attention wasn't the diversity. She'd seen plenty of that in the Centaurian spaceports, but the easy familiarity between species. A hulking Kraxian maintenance worker was sharing what appeared to be a meal with a human colleague, while a Valaxian data analyst engaged in animated conversation with a group of human engineers. Engineer Tlaxon. A human woman approached, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. I'm Chief Engineer Sarah Chen. Welcome to the madhouse. Zyra straightened, her upper eyes focusing on the human while her lower pair scanned the immediate surroundings, a Centaurian habit she'd never managed to break. Thank you for this opportunity, Chief Chen. I understand my application was unexpected. Sarah's laugh was warm and genuine. Unexpected. We've been trying to get a Centaurian engineer on staff for years. Your people's work with quantum field manipulation is legendary. Though I have to admit, you're the first to actually accept our offer. The human gestured for Zyra to follow, leading her through a series of corridors. Your timing is perfect, actually. We've got a Magellan-class explorer in Bay 4 with a quantum drive that's giving us fits. The phase variance is completely out of alignment, but none of our standard diagnostic tools can tell us why. Zyra's professional interest was immediately piqued. The Magellan class uses a modified Hawking-Chen drive configuration, correct? We had similar issues with phase variance in early Centaurian designs. The problem often lies in the temporal feedback loop. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face her, eyes bright with interest. You know, we considered that, but the temporal shielding checked out normal. Unless. She pulled out a data pad and quickly brought up a schematic. Could the shield itself be generating harmonic interference? For a moment, Zyra forgot her misgivings about working with humans. She extended one of her sensory filaments to better examine the technical readout, a breach of Centaurian etiquette she would normally never commit with a stranger. Yes, exactly. See this power signature. The shielding is operating within normal parameters, but it's creating a recursive loop in the quantum field, which would explain why our diagnostics can't spot it. They're calibrated to detect failures, not normal operations causing unintended effects. Sarah's fingers flew across the pad. If we reconfigure the shield harmonics to match the drive's resonant frequency, the variance would stabilize naturally. Zyra finished, her own excitement matching the humans. An elegant solution. Want to help me implement it? Sarah asked with a grin. Consider it your unofficial orientation to the station. 3 hours later, Zara stood in Bay 4's observation room, watching as the Magellan-class ship's quantum drive powered up with a perfectly stable field. She felt a profound sense of satisfaction, and something else she hadn't expected: pride in what she and this human had accomplished together. "Beautiful work," Sarah said, studying the readings. "You know, there's something I've been wondering. Why did you really choose to come here? Most Centaurians wouldn't be caught dead working in a human facility." Zara was quiet for a long moment, all four eyes fixed on the shimmering quantum field before them. "My people believe we have nothing to learn from humans," she said finally. "That your technological achievements are mere copies of superior alien designs, achieved through luck rather than understanding." She turned to face Sarah. "But I studied your species' engineering history. You developed quantum drive technology independently, through a completely different theoretical framework than any other known civilization. It's fascinating and terrifying," Sarah suggested with a knowing smile. "That too," Zara admitted. "The speed of human technological advancement is unprecedented. You went from primitive chemical rockets to functional quantum drives in less than 2 centuries. My people took nearly a millennium to achieve the same." "We're impatient," Sarah shrugged, "and we make a lot of mistakes along the way. But we learn from them." She gestured at the ship before them. "That's why this place exists. Every failure, every success, every weird problem we solve, it all gets shared throughout the human engineering community. And now, hopefully, beyond it." As if to punctuate her words, an alarm suddenly blared through the station. "Warning. Anomalous energy signature detected in Bay 12. All personnel clear the area. Emergency response teams to stations." Sarah was already moving. "Want to see how humans handle a crisis?" Zara found herself following without hesitation. Perhaps, she reflected, she had more to learn here than she'd initially thought. Trial by fire. The emergency lighting cast crimson shadows through Bay 12 as Zara and Sarah arrived. A massive cargo vessel dominated the space, its hull gleaming dully under the warning lights. Teams of engineers and safety personnel swarmed around its base, their movements precise despite the obvious tension. "Status report." Sarah barked, her casual demeanor replaced by commanding presence. A human engineer with graying hair rushed over, his face lined with worry. "Chief, we've got a cascade failure in the ship's antimatter containment system. The magnetic bottles are degrading faster than we can stabilize them." Zara's sensory filaments went rigid. Antimatter containment failure was every space engineer's nightmare. Even a microscopic breach could vaporize half the station. Sarah was already pulling up the ship's schematics on the bay's main display. "How long until critical failure?" 20 minutes, maybe less. We've evacuated all non-essential personnel from this sector, but..." The engineer's voice cracked. "Chief, this is a Horizon-class cargo hauler. It's carrying enough antimatter to power a small city. If it goes..." "It won't," Sarah said firmly, her eyes scanning the technical readouts. "Zara, your people developed the original containment fuel technology. Any insights?" Zara moved closer to the display, all four eyes analyzing the data streams. "The magnetic bottle design is similar to our early models, but you've modified it significantly. These power fluctuations, they're following a pattern I've never seen before." She extended a sensory filament to trace a particular wave function. "There, the containment field isn't failing randomly. Something in the ship's systems is actively disrupting it." "Sabotage." Sarah's expression hardened. "No." Zara's filaments waved in negation. "The pattern is too complex, too organic. It's more like..." She hesitated, her scientific training warring with an impossible conclusion. "It's like the field is trying to adapt itself into a new configuration." Sarah's eyes widened. "The quantum resonance cascade from Bay 4. Could it have affected the containment field's base frequency?" Zara finished. "When we adjusted the Magellan's drive harmonics, we must have created a ripple effect through the station's power grid. But that shouldn't be possible, the older engineer protested. The containment systems are completely isolated from station power. They're supposed to be, Sarah muttered, her fingers flying across the console. But look at these power signatures. Someone's been making unauthorized modifications to this ship's systems. They've tied the containment field directly into the main reactor grid. Zaira felt her heart race as the implications became clear. They were trying to boost the field's efficiency by drawing on station power. When our quantum harmonic adjustment propagated through the grid, it created a feedback loop in the containment field. Sarah nodded grimly. That's why it's destabilizing. It's trying to match frequencies with every system on the station simultaneously. 15 minutes to critical failure, the station's AI announced calmly. Sarah turned to Zura. Can we reverse what we did in Bay 4? Use the quantum drive's field to stabilize the containment system. Theoretically, yes, but Zaira's filaments twisted in agitation. We'd need direct access to the containment field controls. They'll be in engineering, near the antimatter storage pods, which are currently flooding with radiation. The older engineer added, even in sealed suits, we'd have less than 5 minutes before taking a lethal dose. Sarah was quiet for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she straightened. Zaira, your environment suit, it's Centaurian make, isn't it? Yes, but what does that? Zaira's upper eyes widened as she understood. Our radiation shielding is significantly more advanced than human designs. I could survive in there for at least 10 minutes. No, Sarah shook her head. We'll both go. Your expertise with the containment field, my knowledge of the station's systems. Besides, she managed a tight smile. I've got a prototype radiation suit in my office that I've been dying to test. Chief, that suit hasn't been certified. The older engineer protested. No time like the present. Sarah was already moving. Get that quantum drive powered up and ready. We'll need every bit of its field strength to pull this off. Minutes later, Zara found herself following Sarah through the cargo ship's irradiated corridors, their suit sensors screaming warnings about the rising radiation levels. The human moved with surprising grace in the bulky prototype suit, leading them deeper into the vessel's bowels. Engineering should be through here. Sarah's voice crackled over the comm. How are your radiation levels? Manageable, Zaira replied, though her suit's warnings were becoming more insistent. 8 minutes until my shielding fails. They reached engineering, finding it bathed in the ethereal blue glow of Cherenkov radiation. The antimatter containment units dominated the room, their magnetic bottles visibly flickering, a sight that made both engineers' blood run cold. 7 minutes to critical failure, the ship's AI helpfully informed them. Sarah moved to the main engineering console, while Zira accessed the containment field controls. Their fingers flew across their respective interfaces, racing against time and radiation to implement their desperate plan. Ready on the station side, Sarah reported. Quantum field is at maximum power. Starting the harmonic injection on my mark. Zaira's filaments danced across her controls, making microscopic adjustments to the containment field's frequency. Containment field prepared for synchronization. We'll only get one chance at this. Story of my life. Sarah chuckled grimly. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. Mark. Energy surged through the ship's systems as the quantum field from Bay 4 connected with the containment system. Zira watched in fascination as the wave patterns on her display began to align, the chaos gradually resolving into harmony. It's working, she called out. The field is stabilizing. Wait. Her lower eyes caught a concerning reading. We've got a power spike building in the primary coupling. I see it. Sarah was already moving to another console. The synchronization is drawing too much power. We need tow. The console exploded in a shower of sparks, throwing Sarah backward. She hit the deck hard, her prototype suit's faceplate cracking from the impact. Sarah. Zaira abandoned her station, rushing to the human side. The suit's integrity was compromised, radiation pouring in through the damaged plate. Without thinking, Zara reached out with her sensory filaments, interfacing directly with Sarah's suit systems to activate its emergency seals. "Finish it," Sarah gasped, fighting to her feet. "I'll handle the power distribution manually. Just get that field stabilized." Zara hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded and returned to her station. Her filaments moved with desperate speed, compensating for the power fluctuations as Sarah manually redirected energy through the ship's backup systems. 3 minutes to critical failure, the AI announced. "Almost there," Zara muttered, her heart's pounding as she made the final adjustments. "Just need to lock in the resonance frequency." The ship shuddered around them. Warning lights flashed across every console. Then, suddenly, everything went quiet. The containment field indicators steadied, showing a perfect, stable harmonic pattern. "Containment field stabilized," the AI reported. "Critical failure averted. Radiation levels decreasing." Zara sagged against her console, all 4 eyes closing in relief. Then she heard Sarah's labored breathing over the comm and snapped back to attention. "We need to get you to medical. Now." "Worth it." Sarah managed a weak laugh as Zara helped her toward the exit. "Got to test the prototype and save the station. Not a bad day's work." "Humans," Zara muttered, her filaments waving in what might have been exasperation or admiration. "Is everything a test to you?" "Of course." Sarah's voice was growing weaker, but her grip on Zara's arm remained firm. "That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we—" She coughed. "How we prove the impossible is just another engineering challenge." As they made their way to medical, Zara reflected that perhaps her people had been wrong about humans in more ways than one. Their recklessness might be legendary, but so was their courage, and their willingness to risk everything to save others, regardless of species. The ancient vessel. 3 weeks after the antimatter containment incident, Zara found herself in an unusual position, defending human engineering practices to a delegation of Centaurian officials. The station's conference room buzzed with tension as her people's representatives faced off against Station Director Helena Walsh and Chief Engineer Sarah Chen. Now fully recovered from her radiation exposure, "The incident proves our point," Ambassador Kivex declared, his sensory filaments rigid with displeasure. "Human safety protocols are dangerously inadequate. Engineer Tulaxin, surely you see the wisdom in returning to Centauri Prime, where proper engineering standards are maintained." Before Zara could respond, the station's alert system activated. "Priority alert. Unknown vessel detected on long-range scanners. Configuration matches no known design parameters." Director Walsh tapped her comm. "Control, put it on the main display." The holographic projection that materialized above the conference table struck Zara silent. The vessel was massive, easily twice the size of the largest human dreadnought. Its hull design defied conventional physics, featuring impossible angles and surfaces that seemed to fold into themselves. "By the first ones," Kivex whispered, his formal demeanor cracking. "It can't be." Sarah leaned forward, studying the readings scrolling alongside the image. "The hull material. I've never seen anything like it. These energy signatures don't make sense. It's like the ship is only partially in our dimension." "Because it is." Kivex's voice had turned grave. "What you're seeing is a precursor vessel. We thought them all destroyed or lost to the void eons ago." "Precursor?" Walsh asked sharply. "You mean the theoretical ancient civilization that supposedly predated all known spacefaring races?" "Not theoretical." Zara found her voice. "My people have found fragments of their technology, hints of their existence, but nothing like this. Nothing intact." The vessel's trajectory appeared on the display, a curved line terminating at their position. "It's on an intercept course," Walsh noted. "Arrival in 6 hours. Recommendations: quarantine the vessel," Kivex declared immediately. "The Centaurian Science Council must be notified. We have protocols for handling precursor artifacts." "With all due respect, Ambassador," Sarah interjected, "that ship will be in Earth jurisdiction when it arrives. And given its trajectory and speed, I'd say it's chosen this station specifically. Chosen. Kivex's filaments writhed in agitation. It's a derelict, adrift for millennia. Then why did it alter course 3 times to avoid collision with debris? Sarah brought up the navigational data. This ship is active, and it's coming here for a reason. The next 6 hours were a blur of preparation and mounting tension. Word of the approaching vessel spread through the station despite attempts at secrecy. Zira found herself working alongside Sarah to reconfigure the station's sensors, trying to penetrate the mysterious ship's dimensional distortion. There's definitely something familiar about these energy patterns, Sarah mused, studying their latest scans. They remind me of quantum drive signatures, but operating on a completely different scale. Zira's filaments twitched in agreement. The dimensional folding effect. It's similar to theoretical models my people developed for space compression. But we could never make it work in practice. The precursors obviously could. Sarah's eyes sparkled with the same excitement Zira had seen during the containment crisis. Think about it. A civilization that mastered dimensional engineering to this degree. The scientific advances we could make are potentially catastrophic. Kivex interrupted, entering the sensor lab. Our ancestors' records speak of entire systems destroyed by mishandled precursor technology. This vessel must be contained and studied properly, under Centaurian supervision. Ambassador, Sarah turned to face him. This ship bypassed 3 Centaurian outposts to reach us. Maybe it has its own ideas about who should study it. Before Kivex could respond, the ship made its final approach. It decelerated with impossible grace, coming to rest alongside the station's largest docking arm. Up close, its hull seemed to shimmer and shift, as if refusing to settle into a single shape. Detecting an energy buildup, Zira reported, her filaments dancing across the sensor controls. It's opening something. A beam of prismatic light shot from the vessel's hull, connecting with the station's docking arm. When it faded, an airlock had formed, perfectly matched to human docking specifications. Well, Sarah said into the stunned silence, I guess that answers the question of whether it's active. Director Walsh to all senior staff, their comms crackled. Assemble in Docking Bay 1. It seems we've been invited aboard. The next hour was consumed by debate. Kivex argued passionately for delay, for waiting for Centaurian experts. Walsh countered that the ship had clearly chosen its host, and humanity would not shrink from first contact with an ancient civilization. In the end, a compromise was reached. A joint team would board the vessel, 3 humans and 3 Centaurians, including Sarah and Zira. As they suited up, Zira noticed her friend's hands trembling slightly with excitement. Nervous? She asked. Terrified. Sarah grinned. And absolutely thrilled. We're about to step into a piece of history that predates our civilizations. Who knows what we'll find? That's what concerns me, Zira admitted, her filaments betraying her anxiety. My people's records suggest the precursors weren't always benevolent. When are advanced civilizations ever simple? Sarah checked her suit seals one final time. But that's why we're going together. Human adaptability. Centaurian wisdom. We'll figure it out. As they approached the mysterious airlock, Zira felt a strange resonance through her sensory filaments. The precursor ship seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, like a vast heart beating in dimensional space. She glanced at Sarah, saw the wonder and determination in her friend's eyes, and made a decision that would change both their civilizations forever. Whatever we find, she said quietly, we face it as one team. No matter what our governments say. Sarah's hand found hers, squeezing briefly. One team, she agreed. Now let's go make history. Breaking point. The interior of the precursor vessel defied explanation. Corridors shifted and reformed as they walked, surfaces rippling like liquid metal yet solid beneath their feet. Their suit sensors struggled to maintain coherent readings, the space around them seemingly fluctuating between different dimensional states. This architecture, Sarah breathed, running a scanner over a wall that seemed to breathe. It's not just advanced. It's alive somehow. The whole ship is one interconnected system. Zyra's sensory filaments tingled with strange energies. These patterns, they're similar to neural pathways, but operating on a quantum level. The ship isn't just alive, it's conscious. Behind them, Kovex and his two Centaurian scientists muttered among themselves, their filaments twisting in agitation. The human security officer, Martinez, kept his hand near his weapon, though Zyra doubted conventional arms would have any effect in this environment. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that seemed to stretch impossibly far, given the ship's external dimensions. At its center floated a crystalline structure, pulsing with internal light. As they approached, the crystal's surface rippled, and symbols began to form, mathematical equations of staggering complexity. "It's beautiful." Sarah moved closer, her scanner working overtime. These equations, they're describing space-time manipulation on a fundamental level. This isn't just technology, it's... Step back, Kovex ordered sharply. This knowledge belongs to the Centaurian people. Our ancestors were chosen by the precursors to safeguard their legacy. Chosen? Martine scoffed. The ship came to us, Ambassador. And these equations, they look a lot like Dr. Chen's theoretical work on quantum field manipulation. Primitive approximations, one of Kovex's scientists dismissed. You barely understand the principles involved. Zyra watched the crystal pulse faster, its light taking on a reddish tinge. Perhaps we should focus on understanding why the ship brought us here, rather than arguing about. The crystal flared brilliantly, and suddenly the chamber was filled with holographic projections, stars, planets, and what appeared to be wormholes, all interconnected by lines of force. At the center of it all was Earth. "It's a map," Sarah realized, her voice filled with awe. "A map of what?" "Transit points, power sources." A warning. Kovex's voice had gone cold. "These are dimensional weak points, places where the barrier between realities has grown thin. The precursors were not gods, Chief Chen. They were refugees, fleeing from something they themselves had unleashed, something that's coming back." The crystal pulsed again, and new images formed, vast shapes moving between the stars, defying description, consuming everything in their path. Zyra felt her heart freeze as she recognized astronomical formations. These coordinates, whatever's coming, it's less than a year from Earth space. "Then we need to work together," Sarah insisted. "This ship, this knowledge, it could help us prepare, defend ourselves, and risk humanity repeating the precursors' mistakes." Kovex shook his head. "No, the Centaurian Science Council will handle this threat. We've preserved precursor knowledge for millennia, studied their warnings. We know what must be done." "What must be done," his scientist added, "is the immediate evacuation of this system. Earth lies directly in the entity's path. The planet must be abandoned." Abandoned. Martinez's hand tightened on his weapon. "Earth is home to 12 billion people. You can't expect." "We can, and we will." Kovex's filaments rippled with authority. "The Council will provide transport for a reasonable number of humans to colonize new worlds, far from the entity's path. The rest," he gestured at the holographic horrors, "are beyond our help." Sarah stepped forward, her voice tight with controlled anger. "You're talking about sacrificing most of humanity to save yourselves. After everything we've shared, everything we've built together." "We're talking about preserving civilization itself," Kovex countered. "The entities cannot be fought, cannot be reasoned with. They consume entire realities. Better to sacrifice one world than lose everything." The crystal's pulsing had become rapid, erratic. Zyra noticed patterns in its light shifting, mathematical symbols flowing faster. "Wait," she moved closer, her filaments extending to better sense the energy patterns. "There's more here. The ship isn't just showing us the threat. It's offering the solution." "Zyra," Kovex warned, "step away from." The crystal flared again, and new equations filled the air. Zyra's eyes widened as she began to understand. The precursors didn't just run. They fought back. These equations, their weapons designs, a way to seal the dimensional breaches, to push the entities back into their own reality. That's impossible, Kivex's scientist protested. Our greatest minds have studied precursor artifacts for generations. If such weapons existed, you weren't looking for them. Sarah had moved to Zyra's side, her own scanner confirming the readings. You were so focused on preserving knowledge, you never tried to build on it. But these designs, they're incomplete. The precursors didn't have time to perfect them before they had to flee. But we could complete them. Zyra's filaments danced with excitement. Human innovation, Centaurian expertise, together we could finish what they started. Or doom us all. Kivex's voice had turned harsh. I'm sorry, Zyra, but I cannot allow this. He raised his hand, revealing a small device. Protocol demands that precursor artifacts too dangerous to control be neutralized. Ambassador. Zyra's filaments went rigid with shock. That's a quantum destabilizer. In this environment, it could tear reality itself. A necessary risk. Kivex's finger moved toward the activation switch. Better destruction than allowing humanity to meddle with forces beyond their comprehension. Time seemed to slow. Zyra saw Martinez raising his weapon, saw Sarah lunging forward. But it was the crystal that moved fastest. Its light suddenly focused into a brilliant beam that struck the destabilizer, transforming it into harmless light. The chamber shuddered, and new symbols appeared in the air. Not equations this time, but words in a dozen languages, including perfect modern English. Choose wisely. Unite or perish. Sarah broke the stunned silence. I'd say that's pretty clear. The question is, Ambassador, are you willing to trust us? To work together, or will your prejudices doom both our peoples? Kivex stared at the dissipating light where his weapon had been, his filaments trembling slightly. The Council, they'll never agree. The risk is already here, Zyra interrupted. The entities are coming whether we work together or not. The only choice is whether we face them divided and doomed, or united with a fighting chance. The crystal's light pulsed once more, gentle and steady, as if awaiting their decision. In its glow, Zyra could see the weight of history settling on all of them, the moment when ancient prejudices would either doom their civilizations or give birth to something new, something stronger than either species alone could achieve. Legacy of the Stars. 6 months had transformed Orbital Station Prima beyond recognition. The precursor vessel, now permanently docked with the station, had become the heart of the most ambitious joint scientific endeavor in known space, where once there had been tension and distrust. Now humans and Centaurians worked side by side, racing against time to complete the precursor's unfinished work. Zyra stood in what they'd come to call the synthesis chamber, watching Sarah make final adjustments to their prototype. The device looked deceptively simple, a crystalline sphere about the size of a human fist, containing what appeared to be a miniature galaxy of swirling lights. Ready for the next test? Sarah asked, not looking up from her calculations. Dark circles under her eyes testified to countless sleepless nights, but her voice remained steady and determined. The quantum matrix is stable, Zyra confirmed, her sensory filaments interfacing with multiple monitoring systems simultaneously. Though I still can't believe we're actually attempting this, creating an artificial dimensional pocket in controlled conditions. Something your people said was impossible, Sarah reminded her with a slight smile. Just like they said working with humans was impossible. We were wrong about many things. Zyra's filaments rippled with what had become affection. The Council is still debating whether to officially apologize for Kivex's actions. Better late than never. Sarah made a final adjustment. Speaking of the ambassador, I heard he's leading the integration team now. After his experience on the precursor vessel, he became our strongest advocate for cooperation. though I suspect seeing his quantum destabilizer transformed into light may have influenced his perspective. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Director Walsh and the newly appointed Centaurian liaison, First Speaker Morell. The first speaker's presence on the station was itself a testament to how much had changed. Never before had such a high-ranking Centaurian official worked directly with humans. The latest data from our long-range sensors is concerning. Walsh began without preamble. The entities have accelerated. We've lost contact with 3 more outposts in the past week. How long? Sarah asked quietly. 4 months. Morell's filaments twisted with anxiety. Perhaps less. Our most advanced models suggest they're drawn to areas of high technological activity. Earth's quantum drive signatures might as well be a beacon. Then it's time. Sarah straightened, gesturing to their prototype. We've confirmed the basic principles. The device can create stable dimensional pockets and seal breaches in space-time. We just need to scale it up. To what you're proposing? Morell's filaments rippled skeptically, creating a network of dimensional anchors around the entire solar system. The energy requirements alone can be met by combining human fusion technology with Centaurian quantum field generators. Zyra interrupted. We've run the simulations countless times. It will work. And if it doesn't? Walsh asked softly. If we commit our resources to this plan and fail, then we fail together. Sarah's voice was firm. But we give ourselves a fighting chance. The precursors ran because they didn't have time to perfect their defense. We've had that time, thanks to their warning. And we've done what they couldn't. We've united different species, different approaches to science and engineering. The humans right. A new voice joined them. Ambassador Kvex entered the chamber, his formal robes replaced by practical engineering gear. I once thought humanity's greatest flaw was their reckless drive to push boundaries. Now I understand it may be their greatest strength, and perhaps what the precursors saw when they chose this station as their messenger. He moved to examine the prototype, his filaments extending respectfully. In my fear, I nearly destroyed our best hope for survival. Instead, I've watched our peoples achieve in months what my civilization couldn't in millennia of careful study. Perhaps that was the true message of the precursor vessel, that innovation without wisdom is dangerous, but wisdom without innovation is stagnation. The prototype pulsed, as if in agreement, its swirling lights casting patterns across their faces. Director Walsh studied it thoughtfully, then nodded. How quickly can you scale up production? With full access to both human and Centaurian manufacturing facilities. Sarah calculated rapidly. 3 months to build the network. Another 2 weeks for testing and deployment. Cutting it close, Walsh mused. When do we not? Sarah grinned, some of her old enthusiasm breaking through the exhaustion. That's humanity's specialty, isn't it? Making the impossible happen just in time. With some help from your friends, Zyra added, her filaments brushing Sarah's shoulder affectionately. The next 3 months were a blur of activity that transformed not just the station, but the entire solar system. Dozens of ships, human and Centaurian working in perfect concert, deployed a web of dimensional anchors in precise configurations. Each anchor contained a scaled-up version of Sarah and Zera's prototype, powered by hybrid generators that merged human and Centaurian technology in ways neither species had imagined possible. When the entities finally arrived, they found not a defenseless world ripe for consumption, but a unified front of 2 civilizations standing as one. The dimensional anchors activated in perfect synchronization, their combined power creating a barrier that even reality-consuming horrors couldn't breach. The entities, for the first time in their ancient existence, were forced to retreat. In the aftermath, as celebrations erupted across Earth and Centauri Prime, Zyra found Sarah in their old sensor lab, staring out at the precursor vessel that had changed everything. Hard to believe it's been only 7 months since you first arrived at the station, Sarah mused. Feels like a lifetime ago. In many ways, it was. Zyra agreed, her filaments moving in patterns of contentment. I came here desperate for work, believing I would find only primitive technology and reckless experiments. Instead, I found the future, Sarah suggested. Hope, Zyra corrected. And a reminder that the greatest discoveries come not from clinging to what we think we know, but from being willing to reach across the void to others. The precursor vessel pulsed once, a final gesture of approval, before its lights dimmed permanently. Its work was done, but the legacy it had helped create, the union of human innovation and Centaurian wisdom, was just beginning. In the years that followed, Orbital Station Prima became more than a shipyard or a research facility. It became a symbol of what different species could achieve together, a beacon of hope in a universe that still held many mysteries and dangers. And at its heart, a human and a Centaurian continued to push the boundaries of possibility, proving that the greatest force in the universe wasn't technology or wisdom, but the power of unity in the face of impossible odds.